Hi, welcome to this episode of Shop Talk Live. This is episode 354, and what was originally planned to be a rapid-fire question episode turned into a much deeper discussion, and I'm not mad at it. Me and Vic got to talk to Erik Curtis, who is my shopmate, woodworks out of Philadelphia. We were happy to have him on for the first time, and we got into deep dive about design and our approach to woodworking and why we do what we do. It's a really great episode. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. Let's get started. Erik Curtis, let's go.
All right, I'll figure it out.
Oh, and dickhead is not hyphenated.
Yeah, but it is my middle name, so that's usually not.
That's what the H stands for.
Yeah, come on, man.
This is what makes Vic a great co-host. He's like, I'm going to make sure Jeff has to bleep out something right out the gate, and then we're set.
Now he knows the pace has been set. Now he knows he's got to be on it.
Like there it is.
True professional right here. True professional.
That makes me feel safer, more at home, you know? That's a welcoming host.
I love that.
There you go.
I love that.
Tell us about Erik.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Well, my name is Erik Curtis, and I started out as a child. And, from there, started building things and eventually got into home building and came up through the trades, fell in love with furniture, started doing that when I was somewhere around 19 or 20, graduated college with a bachelor's in comparative religion and philosophy because I'm a millennial and we have to waste at least $100,000 on an education. Then went back to school to CFC for furniture and came out of there and started trying to figure out how to be a furniture maker. And I've been doing that for nigh on the last 15 years or so.
Great. You did great, buddy.
Hey, thanks, man.
I love it.
It's almost like I talk for a living half the time.
Right. Well, you're not. And you also, you handle, you have a YouTube channel. You've been on television. There's a lot more.
Listen, my biography is really a collection of side quest stories. Like I've done everything. And the reason that I kind of leave all those side quests out at the beginning is all of those have always kind of been in favor of trying to figure out how to be a furniture maker for a living, how to be a woodworker, how to be a maker of things. And so those are all just kind of things that happened to me while I was trying to figure out how to make $1 for cutting dovetails, like that's really all the story. That's the main arc. That's the villain arc.
I feel that.
A whole dollar.
$1 a tail. That's my going rate.
Wow. That's pretty good. So that's like $1.35 Canadian.
Something like that. I don't know what the conversion is because I didn't finish high school, but somewhere in that range.
It's interesting, Erik, you talk about like side quests and stuff. And I sort of feel like I have a similar sort of thing where people say like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, it's complicated. There's a lot. You had the added excitement of being on television, and some would argue heartthrob. Some would argue.
I don't think many would argue that.
But some. But the reality is like, I don't think any of us really sort of like, okay, I'm going to be a furniture maker. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to learn furniture making. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to make furniture and I'm going to be wildly successful and not have to do, 25 different things in order to make a living. And I actually kind of felt better once I started learning about guys like Garrett Hack and Michael Fortune and all these guys who are like top level, amazing furniture makers. They write, they teach, they do all kinds of other things in order to support that. And so while you were saying all of the side quests sort of went towards being a furniture maker, I had decided many years ago that all of my efforts were going to go to passing on what I know so that there's more of us, right? Because when you list out the people that I studied with and all that other stuff, the opportunities I've had are just mind-boggling. But what's the point of it if I just sit on it? So
God, that's an interesting question, because I kind of loathe this myth of the furniture maker who just sits in their shop all day and like gets to make objects, and clients find them and they just have this beautiful little space to themselves, like overlooking a cherry tree as it blossoms in the spring. Like that's all. None of that happens. That existence is a fairy tale.
I have dandelions.
As dandelions.
Sea of dandelions.
I have Kensington, Pennsylvania. It's a really wonderful scene looking out our shop window.
Lovely spread out there.
It is. It truly is. But that idea, like the conversation that comes up a lot is this question of, does that still exist? And that question bothers me for two reasons. Number one, like you just listed, Garrett Hack, Michael Fortune, these people who are undoubtedly masters of our craft, who also teach, write, travel, like they do all of these other things to maybe to supplement it, but to your point also, maybe they have this desire to pass on the craft, and that's wonderful. But I don't think in the studio furniture movement, I don't think that myth of like the proper furniture maker has ever existed. Like we talk about like the three kind of progenitors of the studio furniture movement are Eschrick, Nakashima, and Maloof, right? Like those are kind of the big three. And Nakashima was a furniture maker. He was also an architect. He was also a landscape designer. He was also a writer. He was he did a million things. He was a farmer. Maloof was a production worker. Like he did one-off pieces, but he was a manufacturer of wooden goods. He had a manufacturing business, and he also wrote, and he also taught. And Eschrick died in poverty. So like, you know, like it's, I don't think that idea that if I just build it, they will come has ever been a reality. It's just a myth that we like to hang on to because it's sexy.
That's a good point. I love, when you first meet somebody and they're like, well, what do you do for a living? And you're like, well, let me think about that, because I actually don't know how to sum it up.
All of the things.
I don't like talking too long, so I don't feel like explaining to, And I do think there's a really unique experience. And maybe it's an art aspect to it too, but like having to pivot between certain things to sustain a certain level of craft that you want to, right? And that's a really good. I'd never thought about that like that. Maybe it has never existed.
Well, I think about it all the time because, doing what I do in Amanda, I don't know how you traverse this on social media. And Vic, I don't know if you've experienced this, but there's a lot of people in kind of the proper quote unquote furniture world that are basically like, well, Eric's a YouTuber. He's not a woodworker. He's a YouTuber, right? He's a social media personality, which is, it's just, I mean, that's a whole nother, the politics of that conversation is a whole nother thing. But what I think is really interesting about it is I view YouTube as a way to teach people, Vic, to your point of like, I have experience, I have things to share. Maybe the things I share aren't for everybody, but they can reach a really wide audience. And what I do think is really valuable about our craft is the level of kind of self-actualization and empowerment that somebody can reach through just making things, whatever the thing is. It doesn't have to be out of wood, right? You can learn how to be a great cook. You can learn how to be a great baker. You can learn how to paint, write songs, like any of the things. But that level of kind of, oh, I have something to offer the world. I found that through woodworking. And YouTube is a really great avenue to share that and encourage people to kind of go on that own journey themselves. And I don't, from my perspective, see that any different from the quote unquote proper woodworkers who look down on me for doing what I do, but then go teach classes at the same time.
Well, that's kind of why I wanted you to bring it up, because I do feel like that is an avenue for teaching that. So if you think about teaching, what a max classroom for one teacher and assistant, what is 8 to maybe 10 to 15 people tops. You're reaching thousands of people, and maybe not in the same exact hands-on experience, but you're also, I watched your YouTube video that just came out this weekend in preparation for this. And I do feel like the way you present information doesn't just appeal to woodworkers, but it appeals to craft in general. and the thought process that goes into design and like, why am I doing this? And so it can, and you kind of have to do that, right? For YouTube. Like you can't just be like, I've tried and I'm like, my brain don't, I'm too like dial focused. And yes, you have to adjust for that, but that's just like everything we do, right? It's like, yeah, if you're teaching in a class, like you have to dial down processes in a way that is applicable to people. And YouTube, it's, well, how do I reach a wider audience? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that there's a lot of controversy around social media, but in what we do, I think it's a part of the game, and it's not even a game. I think it's just, yeah, why would you spend 40 to 80 hours on a YouTube video and not want it to reach as many people as possible?
Right.
That's the intention.
And I think a lot of people take umbrage with like the clickbaity moment that we're in on YouTube, and that's fine. Like I don't particularly care for that either. But you want to make, I want to make an honest video, and then I want that video to reach as many people as possible, depending on the video. There are times where I'm like the video I made about the cabinet that I recently did. And Amanda, I know you know all about that because we share a shop. But like that was a very deeply personal video to me. And I intentionally was like, I kind of want this to tank because I don't want the trolls to come in and, like all that kind of thing. But I see them both, the classroom and YouTube, as teaching opportunities. They just have the capacity to teach different things. Yep. When I'm in a classroom, and I still love teaching in person, and I encourage people to take in-person classes because I get to find out where you are. And my job as the teacher is to identify your skill level and bring you 5 to 10% beyond where you're comfortable, so that when you go home, you kind of know what that feels like and you can try to recreate getting there. That's my aim in person. What I can't do in person is show you my process, right?
Yeah.
And so having a YouTube channel and making videos about what I'm making allows you to kind of dive into the process that I go through as a professional furniture maker, as a designer. And you can pick from it what you will, right? Like if you're earlier on and it might be like some aspects of it might be a little over your head, you might still just walk away from going like, oh, I've never considered using quarter sawn or rift sawn material before and how that changes the aesthetic of a piece. Great. That's good information to have that we can't really dive into the pros and cons of during a class. Or if you're further along and I'm out here just rambling on about like proportions and line and shadow and all this nonsense that like kind of matters, but kind of doesn't matter, you might be able to tease out more information from that because you're more primed for it and you can revisit it over and over again in a way that you can't do in an in-person class.
Sure. Yeah.
It's interesting because as far as YouTube's concerned, like I've never really gotten involved with YouTube, mainly because I have no desire to satisfy algorithms and all that other stuff. I never have. And so, but I think that there's two types of YouTubers in our sort of genre of the world. And I think there are makers, in whatever sense of that word you want to take it, but there are makers who have a YouTube channel. And then there are people who have been very successful with negotiations and money and strategy and all that other stuff that have YouTube channels. And so, because like I've met a lot of people, and again, this is not meant to be disparaging, but I've met a lot of people who have a lot of followers and they don't really know much about woodworking.
Oh, sure. There's plenty of those guys.
And when I always because my students, like they know when they come into the shop for one-on-one class, the one phrase you're not allowed to start a sentence with is, well, I saw on YouTube. And I'm like, forget that. 90% of that is entertainment, right? I said, here are the people that I recommend. And Erik, you're one of them because I know that you have a background in furniture making. A guy like Matt Esley,
sure,
right, from the UK. I know he studied furniture making because I taught him how to cut dovetails when I was visiting over there. And so now he cuts dovetails wrong, but he makes up for it in other ways. So, I mean, there are YouTube channels that are focused on putting out content to help people,
Mm.
and you can very quickly discern which is which, right? Because the focus is different.
We can. That's
right.
And I think that's the thing Erik's talking about, is I think in the broader sense of things, like, content is frustrating because there is so much misinformation, especially about what we do, being put out there.
Yeah.
Right.
But
100%.
And I think as a beginner, I wouldn't be able to differentiate between those things, which is hard.
So it is hard, and I empathize with that. And I like, if you just Google like how to cut a dovetail, there's infinite number of videos, and there's no way to discern who actually knows what they're doing, who's right, who's wrong, and so much of it, like, it's the old telephone game. It just gets, more confusing the further down the line you go. But I mentioned earlier that my job as a teacher is to pull the most I can out of my students, right? And I think that responsibility goes in the other direction as well. Like, that one of the things I take some umbrage with is students really wanting to be spoon-fed everything. And I think I think that's part of the frustration that happens. Like, when people hop on YouTube and they search something in woodworking, and to your point, Amanda, there's 47 people who come up and they don't know who to trust. That's a problem. But it's also incumbent upon the student to learn what information is valuable and what information is correct over time. But they have to put in the work to learn that. Like, that is their job as the student, is to discern partially who are the teachers who are giving them valuable information, and watch their own progress over time and see how they're progressing. And if they're not progressing anymore, maybe change teachers,
Yeah, I understand that too. And I think my struggle with it is seeing, like, beginners of, like, I'm just trying to get into this. What's accessible to me? And YouTube is often the most accessible thing. Like, I'm able to pull up videos, and, like, so I sympathize with people who can't, jump into a class straight away. So they're like, well, I can afford to go to a big box, orange or blue store and buy a tool and, like, learn how to use it. My feelings on that, like, my conflict with that is, like, are you actually getting accurate information? This is scary. And, like, is this actually inhibiting people to getting in the craft even more? Because it is like, well, I'll just, trade off. Let me buy this tool and then jump onto YouTube and figure out how to use it. But I don't know. I just want to jump in and say this was supposed to be like a lightning round episode, but now I'm open to pivoting, which is like how we started the episode like this. We just pivot by nature. So
I mean, it's a natural conversation.
I love it.
I will say, one of the things I take some heat on the internet, and it is the shop. So, Amanda, I'm curious if you hear this too, given that we work in the same space. There are people, and I understand it's a very valid viewpoint. It's a very valid critique that, like, you might have beginners hop on the internet and they just want to learn how to make whatever, a mitered box that hangs on the wall, like a shadow box kind of thing. And then they hop on one of my videos and they're like, well, this guy has $30,000 to $50,000 worth of equipment in a shop that's the size of my house. Like, this isn't relatable. I can't learn from this, which is, again, I get that. And then so this is where, like, the makers who have a YouTube channel versus the YouTubers who make things becomes an interesting conversation, because my job is still to be a furniture maker. I just happen to make YouTube videos as a substantial part of my business, but I still have clients. I still have, things to actually consider when I'm working in my space. And it's not exclusively how accessible is this to the broadest audience possible.
Sure. But I mean, I think you do a good job of clarifying that this is what you do for a living. Like, what, I think it's tough. We have friends that do, like, the DIY kind of stuff because it's more appealing to a broader audience, and they struggle with upgrade. I don't want to name people because I don't know if that's safe, but I don't want to, they're afraid to upgrade to a nicer tool that would make their life easier, but they can't because it would, turn off people. But it's like, at the end of the day, like, how do you make time to share with other people unless you have the resources to make your life easier, where you're not struggling with a miter saw that's like janky or whatever? And fine, like you can make it work. And I could show you an example of that, or like one-on-one, like help you dial that in, but you can't. It's what I'm talking about. It's like, if you're, you have how many, I don't know how many thousands you're at on YouTube or whatever you're at, 100,000 people. Like, how do you also slow down your process and make content, which takes, what you told me my first YouTube video, I was like, does this sound right? Like, it's an hour for like a minute of a video for me. And I think I got lucky because I just like had done a little bit of content, but it's at least an hour per minute of video.
Oh yeah. It's a full day for, depending on the video, of course, but I usually say it's about 8 hours of editing for every 10 to 12 minutes of a video. Like it just takes forever. And then that's not including like the planning. That's not including like the time it slows down to actually film everything in the shop. Like I haven't, the cabinet was a good example. Cause I didn't think about the video. I was just in this headspace where I needed to make that cabinet, over the last couple of months. And if I had been thinking about the videos, that cabinet still took me 2+ months to make. Now that door was a bear. That was really the thing that held me up.
Yeah.
But had I been making videos bi-weekly, like I've been doing, and thinking about how to do that, that would be a 6 to 8 month project.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just no way around it,
Right.
When you're working on a project in the shop, putting in hours of effort, measuring, cutting, sanding, the last thing you want is for your project to come apart because the glue didn't hold. Trust me, I've had it happen. That's why you should keep a bottle of Gorilla Wood Glue on the bench. It's non-foaming, cleans up with water, and dries a natural color. And of course, there's the reliable Gorilla strength you can always trust. The bond is actually stronger than the wood itself. Also, look for Gorilla Wood Filler for strong, durable repairs with high-performance stainability, paintability, and sandability. You're left with a professional-looking finished project every time. Gorilla is strong enough for the pro and easy enough for the beginner. Regardless of the user or the job, every bond is built by you, backed by Gorilla.
It's interesting. I think going back to the, you have this shop and you have these tools and you have those tools. And it's like, listen, like we all come by our shop situations the way we come by them. And I mean, some people look at how much Festool stuff I have and think that I must be made out of money. And when the truth is, I'm not good with the money I have. I make poor decisions. I've been doing it since I can remember. But I mean, at the same time, it's like, I always try to encourage people that it's like, listen, you don't need to have like a Felder sliding table saw in order to do this. You know what I mean? Like you could also use a handsaw to cut this. I mean, it's not. So I think when people, this is probably going to upset people, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think people's egos as viewers get in the way. And they feel bad that they can't have the biggest shop and the biggest tools and the biggest everything. And it's like, it's not a competition. It's like, if I have the new Festool table saw, so what? You know what I mean?
It's like a good saw.
It's a great saw, and I enjoy using it. But you don't need to have that in order to woodwork. And so I think a lot of it comes from this sort of insecurity that all of us have, where then of course, if you don't have a way to manage those feelings, then it turns into a troll comment on somebody's post or whatever. And it's like, like unless you're saying, if you don't have this particular tool, you can't do this, right? But that's what people are hearing. Right. Or they see a nice tool and they're like, oh, wow. Yeah, of course he can do that. He's got he's got an H&T Gordon shoulder plate. Well,
that's the Norm Abrams effect, right? It's just like, well, of course he could do it. He had $1 million shop.
Right.
And a whole bunch of other woodworkers who helped him build the project 3 times before he would actually build it on. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not reality.
And then the person behind the comment might be an engineer with a paid off degree and like an actual retirement. You know, it's like the trade off is like,
how's that 401k take, buddy?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Not to be, I'm not calling anybody. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just different.
I do want to say, I don't want this to turn into like a complaining session. The overwhelming majority of the people I interact with on the internet are wonderful. But of course, as humans, we have a negativity bias. And what's really funny to me is every now and again, I still get comments on an old video I made during the pandemic where I made a walnut whiskey cabinet. It's got like a carved front. And I made it. It was during the shutdown. I made it in my mom's garage. I had a couple of hand tools that I brought up to New York with me. I had my DeWalt contractor saw. A melamine table that was my workbench, and I wanted to resaw the components out of a slab for the cabinet. And what I ended up doing was trying to get as much of the resaw done on the table saw as possible, but it was like, I don't know, 8 inches wide or something. And so out of the middle of the slab, I just used my Sawzall. I used my recip saw and just ripped it down the middle, and it worked. And the amount of comments that I get from that video where people are like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's using a recip saw to do some book matching. And it's like, so you can't please anybody. I give you literally the most like gangster way to resaw a slab you've ever seen in your life, and it's still not good enough.
Well, but I mean, that's basically anything. Anytime people can comment on what other people are doing, that's what it is. It's like you can't win. You know what I mean? Like I think of poor Billie Eilish, who like she wears frumpy clothes and gets crapped on because she wears frumpy clothes, and then she wears something a little bit more revealing, and now she's a tramp. Yeah, and it's like, come on, like just let's play a little game called Shut Up and Enjoy. Right? If you don't like it. If it's not your cup of tea, just move on. You don't have to, start chirping.
That's
just
a t-shirt,
move on.
Vic, by the way. Just let's play a game. Shut up and enjoy it.
Shut up and enjoy it.
What are you
buddy. Complaining and wrecking everybody else's fun for?
Anyway. Yeah, I like your point, Eric, that in general, like people are pretty good, but there's going to be a couple negative ones, but that's the nature of exposing yourself to that many people. Like,
I also just think, again, I think that's just human nature. I mean, it is. We know we have a negativity bias. And I'm going to pick on Larissa for a second, our shopmate, who's a wonderful, wonderful person, incredible woodworker, and an even better teacher. And she was teaching somewhere recently, and she had, I think it was 12 students. And the school actually showed her the feedback that she got from the class, like all of the, like, how do you rate how this went, 10 out of 10, yada, yada. And 11 students gave her a 10 out of 10 overall. And 1 student gave her a 9 out of 10 overall. And she was like, what did I do wrong?
Oh, that is Larissa.
I'm like, Larry, listen, buddy. You got out of 120 possible points, you got 119, and you're hyper fixating on the one. Like, you're doing just fine. You know?
And I think that's human nature. So a few months ago, we filmed her box class. That's an e-learning course for the website. And Ben and I, like the first day after filming, he was like, in all of the years of like a decade of filming these things, he's like, I've never seen anybody just go on camera, immediate like perfection. He's like, we didn't have a single double take in like 3 days. And at the very end, we did like a social, like just a promo kind of thing. And she like stumbled on one little thing. And I was like, dude, you don't even understand. Like, he was mind blown. We both left. And I think it's just human nature. And Larissa is just, is incredible. Just human and teacher and woodworker. And like the stuff that she was showing us, we were both like, what? But she's like, I messed up on this one little thing. And it's like, man, that is nothing. Like, I don't think about it. But
she's so casual about the whatever 12, 13 years of experience as a professional furniture maker that she has. And she's just I don't know a lot. And I'm like, shut up, man. Shut up and enjoy it. Okay.
Vic,
But that's better than the opposite. That's better than, the head can't come to the door.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I would rather someone be humble and, not brag and, just kind of let their work do the talking.
Oh, I don't know why you're friends with me then, buddy. I am insufferable.
It's true, but...
Says the guy who gave half an intro. Yeah, okay.
Well, any Hoosiers. So what's going on with you guys? How you been? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Vic, let's Pantelhaven, I wanted to talk about the MFT thing a little bit because I do think that was like a perfect example of just like a different approach to woodworking, and I think actually accessible. When I saw your presentation, I was like mind blown.
What is this?
About the MFT? Vic, talk about it. I can't talk.
So I don't use 17th century benches because we don't work in 17th century shops. I can't wear wool underwear. They drive me crazy. And those short pants make me look goofy. So I use a version of a multifunction table that is like rock solid with a wooden base. And that's what I woodwork on. And I've done that for over a year now. I don't have any vices other than Canadian whiskey. I just work on my bench, and it's great for hand tools. It's great for power tool stuff. I can do stuff with the domino. I can do stuff with the track saw. I can do stuff with hand tools. And it's accessible to people in that, if you wanted to buy one commercially, you'd be spending about $500. I mean, I don't know if anybody's priced a wooden 17th century bench lately to have somebody make it for you.
Yeah, Straz has got to be coming up on 10K, yeah? Probably well over that.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And again, like, if that's what you like, right, then that's great. But the reality is that for even less than that, like, you can buy a $200 tool that allows you to turn any piece of sheet good into an MFT table with the same accuracy, the same, all that other kind of stuff. And it's like, as far as accessibility goes, it's kind of a no-brainer.
So what prompted that change for you? Were you tired of joiners benches, or was it a decision like to promote accessibility? Like what encouraged you to do that?
Well, I just looked at the functionality that an MFT has, right? Because I have an actual like Festool branded MFT with the guide and the fence and all that other stuff. And I was like, this is so useful. You know what I mean? When you're putting pieces down or you're creating a stop to do like repeated work or whatever. And it's like, why don't we do all of our woodworking on this? And that's when I started sort of investigating it and figuring out. And once I started to figure out that, you can hold things anywhere you want on the bench, whether it's on the front, the side, the top, you can secure it completely. And then have the ability to set up dogs to put you can put a piece in the same orientation every single time. And then like, if you're using like a power tool of whatever sort, you're going to get the same results every single time. And so it just didn't. And then like, I looked at vices in general, and I've never really liked vices because they always, they're in the wrong spot every time. Right. So like, if you look at a standard Euro style bench, if you're a right-hander, your tail vise is on the right front, and the front vise is or shoulder vise or whatever is on the left front. But what if you're like working on something, and then now the only place I can access the vise is here or here or here. Right. And so I found that really frustrating. And so like, I want to be able to work like all around my workbench and not be sort of hemmed in by like a certain a certain area, because that area that's the most useful is also the one that's going to be covered in crap.
Sure. Well, the reason I asked is it's interesting hearing you articulate that. Every cabinet shop I've ever worked in, like none of them have joiners benches. That's not a thing that exists in contemporary woodworking. I think this comes back to like what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, that kind of myth of the furniture maker, the joiner, that doesn't really exist anymore. But every single shop I've ever worked in, it's a full 4x8 of melamine, sometimes on a pair of sawhorses. Like it just, you know, and they might have an apron kind of tacked onto the bottom of it to keep it flat. But it's lower than the joiners benches we typically use. There's usually some slot or some holes in there where we can throw a clamp in there to clamp stuff down. Yeah. But I mean, we're talking, and I say cabinet shop because that's the industry terminology. But the last cabinet shop I worked at was Boland Woodworking in Germantown. And this was just a couple of years ago when I started the YouTube channel full time. I took a part-time job there to make sure I could still continue to pay my mortgage. And we were making, I mean, just beautiful pieces and refinishing pieces from a lot of the masters. Nakashima sent a lot of stuff over there to get refinished. We had a lot of Art Carpenter pieces come through there, Judy McKee pieces. And we were all working on these just melamine benches with a couple of clamps, some F clamps around the sides sometimes, and that's it. And we're doing proper joinery. We're doing, you know, high-end work, and nobody's got a goddamn tail vise. It doesn't exist.
And I think it's largely a hobbyist thing. I mean, and it's that way with almost everything. Like when I learned how to do photography, like before the internet, and like we had to, like, if you wanted to take a picture of the piece of furniture you just built, you had to hire a photographer. And then you'd give $350 to the photographer, and then now you're left with $150 that you just sold this piece for. And it's like, this is a bad life decision. And so I learned how to do photography. Right. But at the beginning, it's like, oh, well, I need this and I need that. And I got to buy this thing and I got to buy this jig. And then it's like, now everything that I need to shoot a piece of furniture fits in like a fanny pack. And it's like, you know, and I can do pretty decent things with an iPhone. And so
that's great.
And that has nothing. Yeah, exactly. It has nothing to do with what I actually needed at the beginning. Right. It's like, well, this is the quintessential thing that somebody needs. You know, like a medium format camera, for example, right? Like, well, if you're going to take good quality photos, you're going to need a medium format camera, you know, and you might as well get Hasselblad because everybody knows that that's like the best name and all that other stuff. So it's one of those things where it's like, I think people, the silhouette of a 17th century workbench is so closely tied to craftsmanship that like, people feel like they're not doing it right unless they have it. And I agree with you, Eric, 100%. Like every time I go into a shop where people are actually making money, like when I walked into your guys' shop and I was like seeing what you guys were working on and like, you know what I mean? Like I bring up this example about Larissa. Like I looked at, she had her combination square on her bench and it said Ace Hardware on it. Yep. And I'm like, well, but like anybody who's like a hobbyist would be like, oh my God, it's not Starrett. You know, and is it square? But they couldn't tell you how to tell you if it's square. Right. Well, so that kind of brings up, I'm thinking about like a dissenting opinion a little bit. And oh, good. Well, I'm with you, but allow me to play devil's advocate for a moment. I think there is a reality where it doesn't matter what tools you have. At the beginning, you're going to suck. And then you make things, whatever the thing is. If you're a photographer, you take photos. You learn how to process film. You move to digital. You do all the things. If you're a furniture maker, you make things out of pine, and then you buy hardwoods, and you realize that oak is a terrible, terrible wood, and you should never work with it. And then you try to invariably make something out of Purple Heart, and you feel excited about it, and then a week later, it's brown. Like this is the arc, no matter what type of tooling you have. And so there are the people who, I think I was among these folk who didn't have the funds to buy fancy things and really just wanted to learn how to make things without the aids and the accoutrements that are sold. I wanted to learn how to make things without
machines. I wanted to learn to make things by hand because I thought that if I could do it by hand, it would be easier to learn how to do it via machine if I needed to than the other way around. I never wanted to be limited by what a machine could do. But there's a lot of people who don't have that stubborn tenacity, maybe bordering on arrogance, some would argue. And I think in those situations, if having a nice joiner's bench or having a fancy tool, like maybe they want to buy Lee Nielsen instead of rehabbing an old Stanley, or they want to buy a bad axe saw instead of buying an old Diston and figuring out how to clean it up. Like if that's what encourages them to keep getting back into the shop and develop skill over time, then I think that's totally fine and is a good thing, ultimately, for both them as individuals and for the craft as a whole.
Yeah.
But I guess my rebuttal to that is, I agree, but don't lord it over people.
Oh, sure. I mean,
right?
You
And say, you don't have a Lee Nielsen
plane,
plane, you're useless.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes it's just brand. You know what I mean? Like part of the reason why I want a Porsche is because I would like to drive a Porsche.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it happens to be an amazing ride and the drivability is amazing and all that other stuff. And I want to hang out with Conrad Sauer more.
I mean, who doesn't?
But the reality is that like a lot of people will buy a bougie car like that just so that they can be seen driving a Porsche. And it's no different with hand tools. We always joke when I worked at Veritas that we reckoned that 85% of Veritas tools sit on a shelf and get looked at.
It's like woodpecker. You want a wall of red, you know?
Yeah.
The hobbyist
100%.
wants a wall of red, which is, you know what? Whatever. Like any way into this is the right way. Like if
90% of those red tools can be replaced by a combination square.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. I mean, everybody has the right to spend their money in whatever way they see fit. I have my own opinions about woodpeckers, and I would rather you spend that money commissioning me to make something for you. But hey, you know, live your life.
100%. I agree.
Yeah. Sure.
Hire Erik. You don't want to mess around with that silly woodworking stuff.
Yeah, why do the work when I could do it for you? You know?
It's win-win.
In woodworking, there's no room for compromise. DAP's Weldwood 2-in-1 wood glue and filler is the new tool every shop needs. But what makes it truly innovative is its dual function. Beyond its superior high-strength bond as a wood glue, it's also a high-performance wood filler, tackling fine joinery and tricky repairs with ease. Its thick, non-sag consistency stays put, bonding joints and filling gaps up to 1/8 of an inch for flawless, seamless work. Once dry, it sands and stains just like wood. Simplify your workshop without sacrificing quality. Get the new DAP Weldwood 2-in-1 wood glue and filler today.
Something Larissa told me, since we're all in the same shop, a little insider, and we can edit this out.
We're done recording, right? This is after the show?
I found out that you don't like red in general for your YouTube shots. Is that correct?
I don't. Yeah.
I don't know if that's an aesthetic thing or just
I don't
like
think it's a pleasant color. I use, if I have text on screen, I use red because it stands out from the rest of my photographs. Like our shop. So I typically shoot in the morning, right? Because our shop windows are east facing. Yeah. Kind of northeast, I guess, because the morning light only comes in direct for like an hour or two.
And it's beautiful that 1 hour.
It's I mean, honestly, like
stunning.
I love our shop in the morning. It's incredible. And so I usually try to shoot thumbnails during those hours, which means the white of the walls is pretty yellow. All of the things are wood toned, obviously. And if I start to introduce some like really bold, aggressive colors, it just kind of like throws the vibe off.
Yeah.
You know, now that said, my thumbnail game is pretty trash. You know, I get, well, this is, I mean, we could come all the way back around to the conversation of like reaching the broadest audience and maximizing potential. I am bad at that. Like there are people who are way better at that. Like Drew is way better at that than I am. Drew Witt. He spends a lot of time on his thumbnails, and his thumbnails are always enticing enough. He understands the psychology of it. And I'm just like, it's a pretty picture of what I'm trying to get across. So that's probably what'll do the best. And that's fine. I feel happy with that. So the less kind of aggression, I'm trying to I want it to feel like Zen, like you're excited to click on the thing, not like the world's falling apart and this is why. I don't want that time for the thumbnail. Get red out of there. It's trash. It's a bad color.
Well, you're never going to be good at clickbait then.
Well, sure.
You're not doing a bad job. That's all I'm saying.
I think your lighting in your videos, the lighting in your photography is fantastic. I think
thank you.
It's natural.
Thoughtful.
It's easy. It is thoughtful. And a lot of people don't recognize that. You know what I mean? Like I look at photography, like the way I look at everything, and it's like I look at the subtleties of it. You know what I mean? Like everybody craps on. My favorite example is red oak kitchen cabinets with harvest gold stain. I don't have to say anything more than that. Everybody understands exactly what that looks like.
We all froze. Right? We all froze.
Yeah.
Right? We're all
For
like,
those who are listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Horrified.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
willing
no
to bet. Yeah. That's fine.
No, just get it.
It was in 98% of kitchens up here in Canada
I grew up
in
with
the
that.
90s.
That's why I know.
We all did.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about it. If you had that same kitchen and the maker took the time to use rift-sawn material for the rails and stiles and use centered flat sawn panels in the center, right? It would be the most beautiful thing you had ever seen in your life.
Yes.
And so it's those little subtle details, right? That it's like, yes, they wasted 60% of the wood so that they could get this, right?
Yep.
And like I use a jigsaw to cut pieces out of boards and because it's like I want, I take the little frame and I'm like looking at the board and trying to, but I mean, that's the difference between just sort of like throwing it all together. And that's one of my litmus tests for YouTubers. It's like, are you basically putting a cut list into a cut list program and it shows you on this 6-inch board where to get all your parts, and you don't care whether it's rift sawn or quarter sawn or whatever, and you knock it together and you're like, there it is, it's done. Because I always like vomit a little bit in my mouth at the end result. Because like the whole reason I got into this was because I wanted to make beautiful things. Right? And there's enough crappy things out there. But it's like, so it's that attention to detail. It's that understanding of grain. It's those nuanced things that, again, going back to the YouTubers, sets them apart.
Yes.
Right. And so, and you probably gotten comments like if you've ever shown like taking a chunk of wood out of the middle of a board and it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're now what are you going to do with that board? Well, I'm going to make it into small boxes or something.
Right.
But it's like, it's that attention to light, color. People try at the beginning to make things too garish, right? Let's put a racing stripe on this tabletop.
That's a big conversation.
Didn't work for the Ford Mustang, doesn't work for this table.
Well, that's a big
whole
conversation.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I talk about with students in the class setting when we have conversations about design is I think we all, or at least most of us, have this tendency early on to make things, especially curves, but cartoonishly exaggerated, right? Like it's just, you're like, oh, I'm going to do an S curve. And it's just like, whoa, take it down. Your job as a designer is to have the idea, recognize that the idea is probably a cartoonishly exaggerated version of what it should be, and then to continue to dial back the noise until you get to a final result that actually relays what you're trying to relay. And one of the things that Alid, my teacher, Alid Lewis, said to me, I had an interview with him in May.
I'll plug that in the show notes so people can see that, because I love that interview.
Thank you. I think that was maybe my favorite video I've ever made, because it has nothing to do with me, and it's just listening to Alid talk. And there's a lot of things that you like pick up after 15 years of being like, oh, I never realized I got that from Alid. You know, like something he said embedded in me in like 2011, 2012, and it's just there now. But what he said was, good design is, and I'm going to misquote him, but good design is the articulation of one significant thought, and everything else gets stripped away. And it's just trying to figure out how to voice that singular significant thought. And there are other things that, you know, can add to it, subtract to it. And you have to obviously compose like a larger piece of music, but it's the melody line that matters. And it can't be too garish, otherwise it gets away from you real fast.
Well, you know, Michael Fortune once said, when he was talking about design, when I studied at Rosewood, he was talking about drawing, and like, you know, you start with little sort of like crayon sketches that are just single lines and stuff, and then you move forward with something that is a pleasing shape, and then you move forward and you just keep pushing it. He said you'll hit a point almost every time where you'll look at what the last thing that you draw and start laughing. He said, then go about 2 or 3 iterations before that. That's where you should have stopped. And so he said, but don't ever not push past it.
Yeah.
I took an online class from him, and it was like tracing paper, right? You just keep going and going. And yeah, and it is like a really great way to like go back and be like, all right, well, I could reference this, but like take this out, and you don't think about it. You just keep going and going and like, yeah.
I do it with Procreate now.
Oh,
I start off with a sketch, and then I'm like, nope, next layer. And then I copy the things that I liked, and then add it and fix things I didn't like, and then another layer. And then like you end up with, I don't know, whatever, 50, 60 layers. But at some point you can like kind of dial it back and go, yeah, that's where I need that to be.
God, you guys are so much like more professional at design than I am. Like you have
Are you kidding me?
sketchbooks, and like,
we all do it different.
I'm
ending this right now.
I literally just walk, and I'm like, this is good enough. I'll figure it out.
No.
It's true, but that's a way to do it too, right? And then and then when you say something like that, that just pisses me off, because then I'm like, well,
okay, some of us are just talented, I guess.
Just naturally gifted and a nice beard and handsome. Great. Love that guy.
I can't even grow a beard.
We got her, folks. That's where we end it.
I'm just kidding. Well,
awesome. But it's true. Like, I mean, the fact that you can just sort of like think about it and go, yeah, I think I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like, I could never do that. All I would make was like square boxes. It'd be like the biggest Vic Teslin cubist movement you've ever seen in your life.
But it's not as simple as that sounds, right? In the same way that that you're talking about, Amanda, drawing on tracing paper, many, 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 many layers. And Vic, you're talking about layers in Procreate. Like, Amanda, you were in the shop with me yesterday. I spent 3 to 4 hours walking back and forth from like one veneer stack to my wood stacks to another veneer stack, just like leafing through a couple. And
I wish
I look like a madman.
This should be your profile photo. Is you standing like this in front of our wall of wood at the entrance?
Just one of these, staring at it for a while. Because what's happened is that it's that same process. It's just happening in my imagination. That's all. Like, I'm trying to think what the composition is going to look like. If I take this piece and if I move it here, can that become an image? And then I'm trying to tie the things together. But a lot of that stems out of the fact that I'm a terrible illustrator. So I just don't draw it until I feel like it's at least a halfway competent idea.
And I mean, it's, I really think all of this sums up into like any way into woodworking is a good way. Cause how do you sum up one experience versus another? Right. Is like, if you can afford to outfit a whole shop and get into it. Okay. If you can't, you got to buy one tool at a time. Or you got to just design things. Like, it's funny enough, like when I got into woodworking, I took a SketchUp class first, and I didn't know anything about joinery or things to put together. And I tell people sometimes I wish I could go back to that phase knowing what I know now, because my design wasn't limited by joinery. So I was able to just think freely in design, and now I'm restricted to like, actually, will this come together? And Phil, my mentor, was like, don't do that. We'll figure it out later. Don't do it. Figure it out later. But like even if it is, you're just starting to draw furniture before you even get into it and you have access to tooling or classes or whatever. Like I'm a big advocate for like, however you can do it. If you can only watch YouTube videos, watch the right ones. But like, if that's your only way into it, I think that's a great way, and it's a start, and just be invested, Yeah,
Michael
hard.
Fortune once said about that same thing that you're talking about, where it's like, don't think about how you're going to make it, right? Like because you'll all you'll do is make boxes, like just simple, you know what I mean? So he said, design as if joinery and wood movement don't exist. And then if you need to figure it out, he said, Ernest Joyce, Encyclopedia of Furniture Making, anything you need to learn how to build is in there. And so like when I designed sliding doors on a entertainment unit for the first time, I had no idea how a sliding door worked. I didn't know, how like one tongue is longer than the other, and like, I didn't know anything about that. And then I went into that book and there was 3 different ways to do it. And so it's like, as soon as you start designing to your level of buildability, now you're not going to progress.
No, I'm glad this kind of pivoted to a actual like deep conversation versus the original plan. But I love that we pivoted. I think it's a great look into all the aspects of woodworking, the behind the scenes stuff, and all the thoughts that go into it. Thanks so much, both of you.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah. First and not last. Before we started this, I was like, I
was gonna say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Like the overlords haven't improved the nonsense. That is my personality.
Well, that wraps another episode of Shop Talk Live. If you enjoyed it, please let us know by liking, subscribing, sending us emails. You can send in questions or recommendations for future episodes at shoptalk@finewoodworking.com. But also jump on our Discord channel. I always bring this up. We're doing a really fun resurgence of our build challenge we did early in the year, so you can jump on there for details about that. With the holidays coming around, I like to mention that we have several great gift options for the woodworker in your life, whether it's in a limited subscription or e-learning course. We have a new e-learning course with Ben Strano, 3D printing for woodworkers. It's super fun and informative, and I'm pretty convinced this year I'll be getting a 3D printer. So check that out, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. I'm getting bleeped in this episode, and it's the first of many.
I am so proud that we got you there, buddy.
I know.
It's true. I was very happy. Very happy.